This is Steve Boone with Heffernan Insurance Brokers, and you're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast Show. You can find all of our episodes at pharmacypodcast.com.
Hey, this is Todd Urey with the Pharmacy Podcast Network. Interesting interview today. Mitigating risk. What does that mean for a small business owner? You're a pharmacy owner. You have so much to think about. Employees, customers, the software system you're using, the impact of a price adjustment from your wholesaler, generic rebates, the PBMs, for goodness sakes. Let's not talk about the PBMs because it makes my stomach upset. But so much going on. There's an aspect of your business that we want to talk to an expert about today, Mr. Steve Boone, Assistant Vice President of Heffernan Insurance Brokers. Heffernan has a reputation of being a niche provider. They've had success by building relationships with businesses in nonprofits, hospitality, the food industry, real estate, and technology. And now they're focusing a tremendous amount of attention and investment into the pharmacy space. But this isn't new for them. They've been doing this for longer than what you probably realize. Steve, welcome to the Pharmacy Podcast.
Thank you, Todd. It's my pleasure to be here, and I like just to tell everybody that pharmacy insurance is very important, and a little bit about what we've done. Right now, we have about 350 locations insured across the country. We specialize in the independent pharmacy insurance market, and what we offer is coverage for your liability, for your property, for the workers' compensation, and for the umbrella coverage. And what we've noticed is over the years, after talking to many pharmacy owners, we found that most owners don't take the time to truly understand what their insurance policy is going to cover. And more importantly, many of the owners don't take the time needed to compare their insurance. And just as an example, most of the insurance right now for pharmacy owners is with one carrier, and they have been in the business for a number of years. What we're finding is a lot of that insurance is more expensive than really needs to be, and you end up with sometimes lesser coverage. So what we've been able to do is to help a pharmacy owner understand what they need, what they have, and then provide them some alternatives to finding a lower cost product.
Steve, what's interesting to me is the evolution of small business and what a small business owner needs to make sure that they're protecting themselves from in the event of something happening that could be a negative impact to their business. An example of this, and this is modern stuff, we're talking about cyber risks. We're talking about you don't have the right firewall set up, blocking some hacker from going in through some port, some internet gateway, getting into your pharmacy management system and stealing your patient list. If that were to happen, Steve, that's the kind of modern day insurance coverage that we didn't have to even think about 20 years ago. Talk a little bit about some of the more modern coverages or incidences that you've heard about as someone that's been in the business for quite some time and focused on small businesses and independent pharmacy.
You're exactly right. I mean, a few years ago, nobody would have thought it was even necessary to have data compromise or cyber breach coverage on their policies. The pharmacy owner is a very special risk. Your customers not only have compliance issues with personal and confidential information, but they also need to be protected with their HIPAA rights. And so as a pharmacy owner, you need to make sure that you have adequate coverage in case there was a data breach or you lost your customer files, that you would have insurance enough to cover the notification to these customers. The last thing you want as a local pharmacy owner is to have the reputation that the files, the customer files and their credit card information has been compromised. So when we review the pharmacy insurance plan, we make sure things like cyber are covered. Also, the spoilage of medicine is a big item that can happen. You've also got employees claiming discrimination, so employment practice liability is important. Just a lot of things that have happened over the last few years that have changed the way pharmacy insurance works.
So I'm headed to work. I'm a pharmacy owner, Steve, and stuff that I really don't think about because I got too many other things to think about. Number one, my patients. Number two, my employees. Number three, my business, the marketing of my business, my wholesaler. I'm not really thinking much about insurance. However, it sounds like it's pretty important. So take us through, pretend I'm the pharmacy owner, and take us through what questions you would ask to pull out of that pharmacy owner specific things, specific parameters, specific information about his or her pharmacy to ensure that we think about this as I'm riding in the car to work, or I'm jogging, or I'm doing something, or I'm listening to this podcast, that I can start thinking, wow, I never thought of that as in what I should be talking to an insurance coverage, broker, expertise, understanding what that means to my business. Let's go through that a little bit, try to flush out what things that a pharmacy owner should be thinking about and the kind of coverage that they have for their business, what that means to their business, and even maybe even an ugly story or two of what it means when you didn't have the right coverage.
Okay, sure. If I was a pharmacy owner, I would probably wonder, what exactly does my insurance policy cover? And I can tell you, as a broker for over 30 years, a pharmacy owner's business is very unique. It's different from other retail businesses. First and foremost, you need to make sure that all pharmacy services are covered. So if you're doing more than just pill dispensing, if you're doing MTMs, if you're doing blood administration, if you're working with nursing homes, if you're doing compounding, all of these pharmacy services can be covered, but there are many policies out there that limit these types of services. So you really need to read or have the broker show you the exact language that's in the professional liability form. That will tell you exactly if the coverage is right for what your pharmacy is doing. And I'll tell you that not very many brokers will write a lot of pharmacy business. They might write one or two locations their entire career. What we're able to do is, because we only focus on independent pharmacy insurance, we have the expertise and knowledge about your business to make sure that the company we choose covers exactly what your pharmacy is doing. For example, I ran across a pharmacy owner in New York that had a company that we've all heard about before, and it come to find out that this company did not offer the professional liability. The broker didn't know it. They had a claim, it got denied, and there was a problem. So it's important that you deal with somebody that has other pharmacies insured, at least 10 to 20 of them. That way you know that the relationship between you and that broker is such that they understand your business and they can provide the correct coverage.
So what other things should I be thinking about as a pharmacy owner, Steve, from an insurance perspective? For example, accidents with patients on my premise, in my parking lot, some type of suit that is brought against me by an employee, an angered, disgruntled employee, defamation of my character in public, something that came up in the paper, a patient making claims that he or she received bad medical advice and then became sick, or maybe there was a death. Like, expand upon some of the other things that I might not have thought about as a pharmacy business owner.
We coach pharmacy owners all the time about this, because it's just not the pill dispensing that can get you in trouble. There is a lot of exposure coming directly from your employees. So for an example, if you do delivery and one of the employees is using their own car and there is an accident, you need to have the correct coverage to make sure that liability in that accident is covered, because actually, as the pharmacy owner, that accident would be your responsibility. So the hired and non-owned coverage that goes along with your business auto is a critical component. Also, when there's a storm and you have a power outage, or if you have, let's say, an event that shut your business down, you need to make sure that your coverage is there for any medicine that can spoil, and to make sure that the loss of business income is covered. So there's a lot of things that can happen. We've seen over the last few years this whole series of theft and robbery, mostly for controlled substances. Making sure that the controlled substances are locked away in a safe, or they're dispersed throughout the pharmacy, so it makes it harder for somebody to want to get in and take your medicine. It also is important to make sure that you have adequate alarm and security systems in place, sensors, wireless notification. All of these things we really weren't too concerned with over the last several years, but things are changing and you need to be prepared for this. Otherwise, you're facing issues with claims, which is sometimes a difficult thing to have to go through, high deductibles, increase in premiums. A lot of this stuff we'll coach you through as we review your policies, and the goal is really to prevent something from happening. But just in case it did happen, you know that there aren't going to be any surprises, and that the policy and the claim will cover what we tell you that it would.
So Steve, tell us a little bit about Heffernan, just as an insurance broker, a little bit about the history and the depth of the company.
Heffernan is a real success story. They're a 30-year-old company. We're the 14th largest independently owned insurance brokerage in the country. And right now we have close to 450 employees. We are an ESOP, an employee-owned company, so everybody that works at Heffernan has a stake in our success. The thing that sets Heffernan apart is we practice what we call niche markets, and we concentrate quite a bit on the caregiver market. So pharmacy owners is part of that market, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, medical clinics. All of this is part of a niche that we participate in. And because of the size of Heffernan and our resources, we can go to the insurance companies and ask them basically for special deals that other agencies can't get. An example, with the Hartford Insurance Company, we sit on their board as advisors in this industry, and we've been working with the Hartford for the last 12 months, working up new programs for independent pharmacy owners. Some of these programs will be rolling out this year, but this is the type of resource, the type of leverage that Heffernan can bring and then pass it on to you as the independent pharmacy owner.
Steve, you've simplified things for me, I'm sure for our listeners as well. And we're excited about Heffernan joining the Pharmacy Podcast Network and bringing this intelligence, something that you just don't think about. You just don't take the time because you might not have, sat down with your lawyer, your accountant, and looking at your insurance coverage for your business, which I think is very important. Obviously, mitigating the risk of something horrible happening, and now you can find out, do I or do I not have the right coverages for my small business? So if you're listening to the show, I want to encourage you to reach out to Steve. Steve, share with us the best place to get in touch with you and how to get in touch with Heffernan.
You can go into Heffernan.com and you can search our site. Just put in the word pharmacy. Our pharmacy site will pull up. I just wanted to mention too that usually the easiest way to try to get some quotes or some rates indications from us is to complete a short questionnaire, which is on our site. You can also call me directly. My direct number is 636-778-2150. And then certainly you can email me. That's steveb at Heffins, HEFFINS.com. And I'll be glad to talk to you. I'll work with you personally. We do have a staff, but for every new customer, anybody that has any type of questions, I will be the person who will personally help them.
Steve, we're going to put some of those links in the show notes. So if you're driving, if you're working out, jogging about, don't worry about it. All of this information will be in the show notes. You can look that up. pharmacypodcast.com, the Heffernan episode 1 of a 3-part series. We'll be hearing more about this organization dedicated to independently owned community pharmacies and pharmacy businesses. And Steve, thanks for being part of the show.
Todd, it was my pleasure. Thank you.
You're listening to the Pharmacy Podcast with Heffernan, sponsoring today's part 1 of a 3-part series. And we thank you for listening to the Pharmacy Podcast.